Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be speaking about my traveling during a pandemic, so if that's something you're interested in, then definitely keep watching. Right guys, so like the intro and the title of this video says, it's me going to give my experience and a little bit of travel tips when traveling during a pandemic. My destination was to the US, so that's going to be what my experience is about, but I'm just going to be giving general tips for you when it is you are traveling, if it is you choose to travel during the pandemic. So I kind of broke mine down into pre-travel, so all the requirements you need prior to traveling, and then post-travel, after your trip is completed and you're looking to come back home, what you require at that point in time. I got so many questions on my Instagram when people realized that I traveled during the pandemic that I said, why not just do a video where I can answer some of the questions that you may have, hopefully. And if it is you do have any further questions, you can obviously message me down below, message me privately. So let's get into the pre-travel requirements. My destination, like I said, was the US, so it's going to be based on US travel. So one website that I looked to for information was the Caribbean Airlines website, and that website is actually very user-friendly and very, very convenient, because you are able, when you scroll down towards the bottom of their page, you are able to put in information in a drop-down menu, and it gives you the requirements for whatever particular destination. So you have a to, where are you flying from menu, where are you flying to, the dates, and it gives you the requirements. So I entered my information for the US and it gave me the requirements that I needed to fulfill before traveling to the US. And they have all the countries, and they are going to give you all the requirements for that particular country, because it's not as easy as prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, where you book your accommodation, you book your flight, and you just fly. Now you have certain requirements to fulfill before traveling to particular destinations. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, countries are trying to safeguard their borders, and therefore travelers must fulfill these particular tasks. So I entered my information and it came up with 3 requirements when traveling to the US. So the first requirement is obviously having a US visa, and that's something that was required prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, so that's something separate and apart from this video. And then the next thing that you required was a negative PCR test, and that test must be done within 72 hours of your flight date. And then the third thing was a US attestation form. So let's go into the PCR test. Now there are 2 types of COVID-19 tests that you can do. There's an antigen test, and then there's the PCR test, and the PCR is the gold standard, meaning that it's accepted worldwide as the standard, and it's the most specific test you can do to detect COVID-19, so therefore that's why it's required for travel, as well as, apart from the US requiring that COVID-19 negative PCR test, Caribbean Airlines also requires that as well, and you have to do it within 72 hours of your travel date and time. So you have to ensure that you do it at the right time in order for it to be valid. Now, the thing is that because so many people are being tested, your next step with that PCR test is trying to figure out when is the most ideal time to do it, so that it's not too far in advance, so that it's not valid, but also it's not too close that you don't get back the results in an appropriate amount of time. Most test sites in Trinidad say that they will give you it back within 24 hours, but then you also have to figure out if they test on all days of the week, and if it is they give results on all days of the week, example, the weekend, public holidays, etc. So I actually did my test at the Trinidad Medical in Heartland Plaza in Chaguanas, because they were allowing me to test over the weekend, as well as they were saying that they would give me it back in a short amount of time, less than 24 hours, which is something that I needed, because I wanted to test as close as possible to the date of the flight. What I liked about Trinidad Medical is the fact that it was a drive-through service, so that you literally just pull up in the car park, you drive through the tent, they test you, and you drive away. So you never have to come out, you never really have to interact with anybody, and everything is done in a really, really quick, efficient manner. So let's go through the process of actually testing. The PCR test and the antigen test are done via nasopharyngeal swabs, and that is a very uncomfortable form of testing, but it is the requirement when it is you are traveling worldwide. So what they do is they insert a long thing that looks like a Q-tip into the back of the nose. So it goes through your nose and in towards the back. It has to go towards the back of the nasal cavity. So it is quite uncomfortable, and while that process is being done, you get this kind of burning sensation. You kind of feel like you want to sneeze. It does hurt a little bit, and they have to do it for a particular length of time in order for them to get the appropriate amount of cells that they can then test in their PCR machine. I will say the easiest thing for me was to just close your eyes and count to 10, and then it'll be over. And it is uncomfortable, but you can bear it. Trust me, I have had it done twice to me, and you can bear it. You just count to 10 in your head and it'll be over very, very easily. Some people do have the experience of bleeding. My first time being tested, I did bleed a little bit. That's all normal. And then TRICARE Medical actually sends you an email with the official results first, but you can't use those results because they have a little disclaimer down in the bottom stating that unless there is a stamp with a physical document, that test is not valid. It's just for you to, I guess, calm your nerves and realize that, okay, I've tested negative for COVID-19. I can relax and just wait on the official report. And then I picked up the official report the following day. Again, very, very simple and easy. They called and said it was available and I accepted the result. Something that I didn't mention was the cost. Now, PCR test being the gold standard and being one of the more specific tests for COVID-19, it is on the more expensive side of testing. TRICARE Medical offers the service for $900 TT per person. If it is you can go as a group of persons, then they tend to give you a certain percentage off, so you get a cheaper rate if it is you bring more than one person together. I'm sure they have varying rates at different sites, but I did TRICARE because one of the drive-through service, two of the convenience because I live close by, and three because I was able to get back the results in an efficient, quick manner, as well as I was able to test late in the evening when I was coming from work, which was a very convenient thing for me. So you have your negative PCR test, you have your US visa, and the next thing is the US attestation form. Now, technically, they give you this attestation form when you line up in your check-in service at Caribbean Airlines, but you can't fill it out prior to going there, and you literally click the PDF download form on the Caribbean Airlines website. You download it, you read through the form, and you sign on the bottom and date it. The attestation form just simply states that you are aware of the COVID-19 pandemic, you are aware of the certain restrictions following the COVID-19 pandemic, that is, you shouldn't be traveling if it is you are COVID-19 positive or COVID-19 exposed, and that you agree and attest to the fact that all the information you've given is true and that you have agreed to get the negative PCR within 72 hours. And it's literally just a long form just stating all of those things, and you sign and you date it and you give it when you check in at the Caribbean Airlines desk. It's literally that simple, and Caribbean Airlines made it even simpler because they have the PDF download on their website. Now, prior to traveling, I think it's very important that you get masks, and not just surgical masks. I was a little bit on the paranoid side just because of me being in a medical field. I tend to be a little bit on the more paranoid side, and I felt a little bit uncomfortable traveling in a airplane with a bunch of other people. Granted, they should have negative PCR tests, but you just never know. And an airplane, you have circulated air, so I just did not feel comfortable with just a simple surgical mask. So my suggestion is that you travel with a KN95 or N95 mask when traveling, just because you're going to be in an airport with a bunch of people from different countries all over the world, with God alone knows what they have with them, and it's just important during a pandemic to protect yourself to the best that you can. Right, so you get to the US now, and there's no longer the forms that you fill out for customs in the US, and there's no longer like the little touch section, the kiosk that you go and you swipe your passport and you get like the pass thing. There's none of that anymore. They actually physically fill out your like little travel document at the customs officer's like desk. So he asks you all those questions like how much US you're traveling with, who you're traveling with, where you're going to stay, whatever. Those forms, they actually fill it out at the customs desk. So that process actually takes way longer than previously. So we were like the third person in line, and it took us 2 hours to get through because they were being extremely thorough and extremely like particular. So it just took us very, very long, and we were the third person in line. So you could imagine, like, if it is the airport is full of that day, you're gonna have like the longest time in the airport forever. You're gonna be there for forever. So that was the only one downfall, is that I'm guessing they're trying to minimize like persons touching, seeing like multiple people touching surfaces, etc. So they're kind of taking a little bit longer in that regard. So the next thing I'll speak about is your international vaccination card. Now, this is not a requirement for the US because you're not actually required to be vaccinated to travel to the US, but your travel to various other countries may be required, and this is the international vaccination card. Now, this should be done like a couple of weeks in advance to you actually traveling, just because it takes a little bit of time to get it back. So what they do is they take all your vaccination records, your COVID-19 vaccination and your previous vaccinations, and put them all on one card. And this needs to be done at an official Ministry of Health site. So you look up your county Ministry of Health location, and I'll put like an insert of those various locations across Trinidad and Tobago, and you drop off all your vaccination cards, your COVID-19 card, your previous like vaccinations for like yellow fever and all those things. You drop off all of that together with your travel itinerary and a copy of your passport, and you drop it off at that site. And mine took 5 business days to get back. So business days mean weekdays to get it back. And like I said, various countries may require this. Certain Caribbean countries are requiring it. The US doesn't necessarily need it, but you should have it just in case they change their mind in the near future. I'll just kind of mention quickly what is expected if it is you are traveling to the US. The US, there's no mandate that masks must be worn outside. So in the airport, you are required to keep your mask on at all times. And in particular business places, they're requiring you to be masked. Especially if it is you are outside, most people are not wearing masks, but my personal preference was that I am very, very paranoid, so I kept my mask on at all times except for when I was actually eating. Otherwise, I kept my mask on. But if it is you are traveling to the US, you will realize that most persons are not walking around in their mask. Only if they have to enter businesses that require you to be masked, then they are putting their mask on. Another thing is that not everywhere is requesting vaccination cards, but there are certain restaurants that are requiring it. At least all the restaurants that I went to asked for your vaccination to prove that you were COVID-19 vaccinated before you can enter the premises, which I appreciated because I felt a little bit safer knowing that the persons that I was in the restaurant with at the time were vaccinated against COVID-19. And you must know that some restaurants are requiring it and some places of business are requiring you to be vaccinated before you can enter. So know that if you are not vaccinated, you may not be able to enjoy all the like fun things that you can do if it is you are traveling to the US. So your trip is done and you're now returning to Trinidad. Now you can always check on the Caribbean Airlines website again, and you can enter your destination that you're coming from, and then you're coming to Trinidad and Tobago, and they give you the requirements. On coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, you are required to have a negative PCR test done within 72 hours of travel. You are required to wear a mask, and you are also required to fulfill a Trinidad travel pass document. So for me, traveling back from New York City, it was very easy because I just entered COVID-19 testing sites on Google Maps, and it showed up all the testing sites, and I just picked a location that was closest and most convenient to where I was staying in New York City. And I'm sure in various other states or various other cities throughout the US, it's the same thing. And these COVID-19 testing sites usually give you back your results within 24 hours, of you getting it done. And the good thing about traveling back to Trinidad is that you don't actually require a hard copy. They are accepting the email copy that you get from the testing site, so I didn't have to go looking for a place to have it printed. That was something I was a little bit fearful about. They accepted the soft copy version of the negative test. The test must say PCR, and the test must say your date of birth and your name and the date it was done, date and time it was done. So those are the requirements of the test. That's what they're going to be looking for. Now I will say PCR testing in the States is actually more expensive than here in Trinidad. For the test, it was $125 per person. So it actually is more expensive over there. But again, you go through the same process. And it feels pretty much the same, and then you just get your negative result. And then your Trinidad travel pass. Now this was a little bit of a difficult, not really difficult, but this was a little bit of an irritating thing to fulfill. So it's the Trinidad travel pass, and it's something that you have to fill out over the internet, and they have to submit it, and then they send approval for you. So I would actually suggest that you do it within 3 days of you traveling back, probably at the 2 days prior to you traveling back, because it is a long document and sometimes it may take a little while for them to actually approve the submission. And it is quite a long form. The form is extensive. Like, they ask you every single thing they could possibly ask you. There are like 4 or 5 different parts of it, and it is a quite extensive form. They also require pictures of, like, if it is you were COVID-19 vaccinated, they want pictures of that. If it is you have a negative test, they want pictures of that. If it is, they want literally every single thing they would like on that travel pass document, and then you sign a waiver stating that you agree to all the restrictions of the Trinidad and Tobago government. If it is you are not vaccinated, you are required to be quarantined for a particular period of time. If it is you are showing symptoms, you require blah blah blah. They have like a whole list of things that you are agreeing to, and that you are also stating that every bit of information you've placed in this form is true, and then you sign it off and you submit it and you wait for the approval. Again, once you get that approval, you can show the person at the Caribbean Airlines desk and they are accepting a soft copy of that approval, but you must fill that out and ensure you fill that out prior to you traveling, because it is a long tedious form. And one thing to note is that it does not work on all servers, so I suggest that you only do it on Google Chrome, because it does not work on Safari. I tried it a couple of times on Safari and I did not realize it only works on Google Chrome, and I was trying for forever and it just was not working, and I was getting very, very frustrated, and only to come to realize it only works on Google Chrome. So that's a disclaimer there. Make sure you use it on Google Chrome, and then you fill out the form and you complete that, and then you travel back to Trinidad. And the travel process is pretty much the same, except for prior to you going to customs and collecting your baggage, there is a new little desk area where they have lines for vaccinated and unvaccinated persons in 2 separate lines, and they go through that same travel pass form, and they verify that all the information you've given is actually true. So they look for your vaccination card, and if it is you've sent pictures, they need to see the physical vaccination card there, as well as they need to see the actual COVID-19 PCR test there as well. And they ask you to take your temperature, and ask you various questions, and then you go on to customs and collect your baggage and then go through customs. So that was my experience while traveling to the US during a pandemic. It actually wasn't as hassling as I thought it would be. I thought it would be a little bit more difficult, but it actually was not. And like I said, Caribbean Airlines has a great website that gives you all the information. So guys, that's it for my little travel video. If it is you have any questions, then feel free to message me. Hopefully this video kind of answered some of the questions that you may have had. It really wasn't that much of a hassle. It actually is just knowing what you require for your particular destination and getting those things done. So if it is you are thinking about traveling, I suggest you go onto the Caribbean Airlines website and figure out all the requirements and see how long those particular requirements would take before you book your flight and your accommodations, etc. And that's basically it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was at least helpful. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, bye.